Okay. I wanted to do secondary dominance. So, um, secondary dominance. So, what secondary dominants are is a tonicization of other chords within the key. I mean, we know that the dominant of the tonic chord is the 5 chord, or the 5/7, right? So this particular 5/7 will result in 1. But we can also do the same thing to the 2 chord. So we can write a dominant of the 2 chord. So for example, this is 5 notes down. If I do 5 notes up from there, then I get an A dominant 7th, which we would call 5/7 of 2. Okay? Because an A dominant 7th wants to resolve to a D of some kind. It could be D major, it could be D minor, but it wants to resolve to D, right? And so if we want to tonicize the 2 chord in the key of C, we would use an A dominant 7th to make like a stronger progression to the 2 chord. And so still within the key of C, we could use an A dominant 7th to tonicize 2. And we call that 5/7 of 2. Or we could tonicize the 3 chord with a B dominant 7. And that we would call 5/7 of 3. Then it would resolve to 3. We could tonicize the 4 chord. That would be a C dominant 7th, and that we would call 5/7 4. We could tonicize the 5 chord. Be a D dominant 7th chord, and that we would call 5/7 5. That would resolve to 5. And we could tonicize the 6th chord if we wanted to with an E dominant 7th. So in each case, I'm using the dominant 7th that's 5 notes away, 5 notes above, or you could think of it as 4 notes below. Either one, it's a 5th above or a 4th below. And so it allows someone writing the music to sort of temporarily tonicize the key, that chord in this particular key. In other words, make it a little bit more special by using its own dominant. Now, I wouldn't tonicize the 7 because that's a diminished chord. And so you're not going to want to have a strong pull towards the diminished. And of course, the dominant of the tonic is the dominant chord of the key, so that's not a non-diatonic chord, that's still within the key, so that's another one. But everything else, 5/7 of 2 to 2, 5/7 of 3 to 3, 5/7 of 4 to 4, 5/7 of 5 to 5, or 5/7 of 6 to 6. You can use these chords as temporary concepts. Now you're looking kind of puzzled.
So, I'm sorry, how does this work again? Like, when would you use that secondary dominant?
Well,
Is it like go from,
let me give you an example. me show you how this kind of works out. So let's say I'm in the key of C, and I'm writing something like 1, 2, 2, 7, 5, 7. So let's say I'm writing something like that. And so my baseline would be like this. And so this would be a pretty normal chord progression, right? 1, 2, 7, 5, 7, 1. And then 2, remember we were talking last time about how a 2, 7, 2 goes to 5 normal in our chord progression diagram. 5 goes to 1. I could make this progression a little bit stronger. Oh shoot, wait a minute. Well, let's say I'm just going to go to 5 instead of 5, 7. Sorry to change that, but I gotta make my point. I can make that progression a little bit stronger by turning this from a minor 7th chord into a dominant 7th chord. So instead of just being a D minor 7th, I could make it a D dominant 7th, and that dominant 7th is a stronger chord. It's a stronger pull towards this chord. And so then I would call that 5, 7 of 5.
Which is really too dominant. But it's like.
Well, it's kind of like 2 dominants in a row, or you're kind of like going around the circle of fifths. So your ultimate goal is to get to the dominant chord, to approach the dominant chord. But you want to get there from another dominant, so you're like going around the circle of fifths, and you could do that, you could actually back up, and the dominant of a D7th is an A7, the dominant of an A7 is an E7. So you could do something like start in C, and then go to an E7, and then go to an A7, and then go to a D7, and then go to a G7, and finally get back to C. You're just going around the circle of fifths.
Now, when would we use this the most? Is it at cadences? I mean, I don't think like we always want to have that strong pull, or is that something that?
Yeah, I know, yeah. If you do that strong pull too much, you're going to destroy the key, because obviously this is a chromaticism. This F sharp is a chromaticism in the key of C, and so if you do too much of that chromaticism, you're going to pull yourself outside of the key. Yeah, so you want to put it at a place where you want a certain emphasis, where you're looking to emphasize a certain chord. And so if you wanted to emphasize the 2 chord, you could use 5 for 2. Or if you wanted to emphasize the 6 chord, you could use 5 for 6.
And so that depends on the melody and
Yeah,
how we want to bring it out?
The melody
or
would
are
be
there like
one-
specific rules where we mostly use secondary dominance?
No, it's really it's a matter of taste or flavor or whatever. It adds a certain. I think flavor is a good idea, or a certain amount of spice. So if you're just talking about a diatonic progression like the one I had written up there before, if it was just a D minor 7, so it'd be this, then this, then this, then this. Okay, so that's okay. I mean, it's not a bad chord progression. This, then this is the D minor 7. Sounds pretty enough, This would be the G chord, and this would be the resolution of the C chord. But if I want to use a secondary dominant, This is the C chord, this is the secondary dominant. There's the F sharp which pulls up to the G and then takes me back to C. So in that sense, it gives me a little bit stronger pull towards that G chord. And I could do the same thing with, let's say, the sixth chord. I could do a C chord and then go to an E dominant seventh and then go to the sixth chord, which is A minor, and then go on through the 2, 5, 1, something like that, you know. It depends on what I want to emphasize. If I want to temporarily tonicize that particular chord. So when I do like a 5 of 6, it does have kind of a startling, like, oh wow, that's different. If I just played a normal 3 chord, you know, okay, that's all right, but it's not quite as amazing, you know, like as, oh wow, that's different. You know, I hear that as being new or outside of the key. So it allows you to do some chromaticism.
Okay. As far as the notes in the chord, is the 5 under the dominant of 5 similar to the 2 chord?
Yeah, yeah. In fact,
What
that's
do they share?
That's the kind of point I'm trying to make, is that, you know, this chord can be just a normal, everyday garden variety 2 minor 7. If I just take away the F sharp, that's a 2/7. If I put the F sharp in, it's a 5 of 5. And so it's diatonic, it's non-diatonic, it's chromatic, diatonic, chromatic. The thing is, it also has to do with voice leading. You know, so if this is an F natural, sure, you can go down a whole step and back up. You know, that's not a big deal. But if with the F sharp there, it is a leading tone which has an extra strong pull to that dominant note. And that's part of the idea behind all of these, that there are voice leading things that are going on that make the voice leading stronger by using this chromaticism. So for example, if I did something a little bit more, let's say I wrote 1 to 4 to 5, 6, 5, 5. Then I'll just show the bass line would be, that would be 4, right? That would be F. Then if I did F sharp and then G. So that gives me this bass line that goes up to the subdominant, then chromatically moves up to the dominant, and it provides a really strong pull towards that dominant that eventually resolves the tonic. And it provides more interest in the melodic line. I could get rid of this chord progression entirely. I could just do 1, 4, 5, 1, you know, and nobody would, that would, again, it would be just a kind of ordinary, everyday garden variety chord progression. If I just did 1, 4, 5, but if I did 1, 4, 5, 6, 5, 5, 5, it's a little more interesting. In the bass line, the basses get to go rather than just, you know. So it provides a little more, it provides more interesting vocal lines, some chromaticism in the vocal lines, or whatever line we're talking about, you know, the melodic lines, and it provides some more harmonic interest. You know, this chord sounds more, you know, startling, more interesting, more shocking, and has more pull towards the next chord. So the secondary chords are used for emphasis, you know, to emphasize something, whether it be emphasizing, you know, 6 or emphasizing 5 or emphasizing 2 or whatever. And just like the chords themselves, the ones that are more important will get more of these secondary chords. So, you know, you'll see 5 of 5 more often than anything else. You'll see 5 of 5 more often than anything else because 5 is the most important chord before 1, right? And then you'll see 5 of 2 more often than anything else, because that's 2 goes to 5 goes to 1. And you'll see 5 of 6 less often, and 5 of 3 hardly ever. Because you're just not going to tonicize the 3 chord that much. Yeah?
So when you're talking about when you want to emphasize a chord, are you talking about the next chord, or are you talking about the chord that you're making?
Yeah, I'm talking about the next one. So you're emphasizing the next chord by using that one. Now, that's not to say that, yeah, the chord you're making is not also interesting. I mean, it
Sure.
becomes interesting harmonically, but the idea behind secondary dominance is you're creating an even stronger pull to the next chord than you would normally have. If I can erase this stuff.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
No?
30 more seconds.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay. Well, you know.